Hi, I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and this is Hot for Your Health. Join us for conversations on the bleeding edge of science, health, and culture as we bring you tech innovators, thought leaders, and the movers and shakers who are transforming science fiction into your new health reality. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Vonda Wright, and welcome back to Hot for Your Health, where I talk to movers and shakers, innovators, scientists, all shaping the future of your health. And today I'm really excited to have Troy Taylor, who brings science and his experience with multiple Olympic teams and mere mortals like you and me through his work as the Senior Director of Performance and Innovation at Tonal. And Troy, I want to tell you my Tonal story because I've known you guys have been around for a while. I see the ads, I see the consoles on the wall. And so I just happen to live in Lake Nona, Florida, where Joe DeSena, creator of the Spartan Games, has his office. And so you cannot be in this environment without him every day challenging you like, what's hard enough? How come you haven't done anything hard lately? So because of that, I started doing the Spartan Stadion races. And you've seen those. You know how it goes. It's 600 degrees outside. You're just trying to get through the 20 obstacles so that you don't have to burpee out. In between the fact that you're running 3.2 miles, sometimes with 40 pounds on your shoulder, right? So I have done a few of these, and, it's always the spear throwing and the overhead rings. But you guys threw a new one at me this last time in Tampa. Yes, I'm rolling up through the stadium. I've just thrown down 40 pounds that I carried up multiple stairs. Yeah, and there they are, the tonals mounted on a wall, which and there's and you're going to describe this to my people, but there's a bar that I have to hold and pull across my body. And I have to do it with enough power that I make the thing go off, or else I fail and I got to burpee out. And there is no way in God's green earth. So tell us about Tonal, and let's just talk about all the things. What's the science? What's the push-pull you get in one motion? All the things. Let's just start.
Yeah. So with Spartan, rotational chop. Really functional movement, ability to transfer force from high to low, through upper and lower body. Such an awesome movement that I love. Great for golfers, great for my golf game. Probably don't want to, probably less fun to do it after a 3.2 mile run with a backpack. Maybe I'll talk to my marketing team. Maybe we'll get at the front when people are fresh. Oh, this is awesome. Run things. So Tonal.
It was a new motion for me to do in a race, right? I had to stop. And so the brain was engaged to think, how am I going to do this and not fail, right?
And that's what we worked with the Spartan team on, is like, what's a movement that everyone can do, but is going to be both physically and slightly cognitively challenging when we're in this fatigue state. And so it's safe. It's not, it's not a movement that you're going to, hurt yourself on, but you do have to concentrate, and each rep has to be powerful. Otherwise it won't track. So, what is Tonal? Tonal is an entire gym that fits in your space. It's behind me for those that are watching on video, with personal training. It uses electromagnetic resistance rather than sort of iron or traditional dumbbell, free weights. So by that, much like a Tesla is to the combustion engine in a car, we can generate force and resistance through motors. And so that allows us to be extremely sleek and small and fit, 5 inches out on your wall. It allows us to integrate a touchscreen TV so you can get content and coaching. It allows us to monitor in real time your performance in terms of how fast are you moving? Are you moving with the right form? We have something called Smart View so we can track movement patterns. It's basically an entire gym. So you can do 250 or so movements, everything from deadlifting and squatting to things like rotational chopping, to there. And then we have a whole bunch from, our wheelhouse, and what we mostly do is strength training and strength resistance related training, but also have yoga, Pilates, and various other cardio type kind of activities on there. So that's tonal in a nutshell.
Well, let's go back to let's apply the tonal technology and even AI. I'd like you to talk about how you guys have applied AI to things my listeners are used to hear me saying. So, when I first started writing books for the public in 2008, we were in the functional motion, functional lifting, getting people off of traditional machines and into free weights and body weight, right? Now, people will have seen me pivoting, still believing that that's important, but more important for midlife women such as me and midlife men, frankly, more resistance because I'm teaching people to invest in their longevity and power. So you'll hear me say things like you got to get under some weight, some push pull upper body, push pull lower body. So uh for the lower body, deadlifts and squats. So when I was looking at tonal, I was so happy to see that there's that functionality. So walk us through how you don't have to get under a heavy bar, which kind of freaks people out that are new to it, right?
Yeah, totally. I was talking to a physical therapist yesterday that uses tonal in their practice, and his way of describing it is like tonal's the safest heavy weight strength training I've ever done. And why is it in that? It's because number one, so it's electromagnetic. So you don't have to load up and load down the bar. If you want to change the weight, you do it on a touchscreen TV. There's no picking up 45-pound plates and kind of shimmying them onto the bar, or, picking up dumbbells from the floor and working out how you get onto a bench or anything like that. Bluetooth on, Bluetooth off. Touch of a button on the screen. Very, very simple to do. Number two, yeah, it goes heavy. You can go up to 200 pounds, which is, a decent amount of weight. And we actually did a research study a couple of years ago that it because of the way that it generates resistance, it's about 25% heavier than a free weight. So it kind of feels like 250-pound deadlifts, which are not insignificant. Like that, the world's strongest person can't do, but you can certainly get a lot of muscle mass, a lot of strength, a lot of bone kind of related changes with that level of resistance. And then we have things like AI. So we have an automatic spotter built in. So just as an example, we can measure the velocity of your movement every single rep. And we do that for every single rep, for every single person, anonymously, hundreds of thousands of people, billions of reps, tens of millions of training sessions. But what that allows us to do is notice when you're fatiguing and when you're slowing down. And so rather than having to have a human spotter say, stand over you, or kind of, you struggling at halfway up and you can't finish it out, we can either do one of two things. We can reduce the resistance until you start moving 1 pound at a time. So reduce one, you started at 100 and then 99, 98, 97 something. Or we can basically just switch the entire weight off. If you sport and things and we just cut it and okay, we're done for today. And so we have the ability to monitor real time and the weight just disappears. It's literally feels like magic, which is, incredibly powerful for people that have gym intimidation from lifting heavy weights. I don't know if this is safe. I'm still working on my form and my technique, which is super important. And we sort of emphasize that a lot. But you can also sort of work in a resisted fashion where you can start to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis, osteoclast and blast and class, to sort of get bone stuff going all at the same time.
I love that. And at my group and I have this amazing data scientist who mines data. And so we produced a study recently that showed the number one weightlifting injury. This is not going to surprise you. Number one weightlifting injury that shows up in the emergency room is men dropping the deadlift onto the ground and hurting something, right? So this eliminates that, right? There's no dropping of the weights here. You can drop the bar, your AI will sense that nobody's resisting them. And I think it's fascinating, right? That you can get that much out of a few magnets and technology in your house. The other thing we were talking about offline, I love, is that your average consumer is 46 years old.
Yeah, like target customer typically is 35 to 55. We have, I like to say, from 18 to 80-year-olds. We actually have people younger than 18 under adult supervision. And we've got some 90-year-olds on the platform. But the average consumer, your target demographic is 35 to 55-year-olds. It's very close to a 50-50 male-female split these days, which I personally love. We started a little more male-dominated as it, 5, 6, 7 years ago in resistance training, but certainly more and more female members coming online. And so it's really targeted at those people that are, want to resistance train. Typically, most people have some experience, but there's a ton of beginners. And actually, we find self-reported, the older the member, the more likely they are to be a beginner. So it's not that, I've been working out at 60 and been jacking weights forever. It's not, I'm starting my fitness journey now because of people like you and the awareness of the space that we're in. So we see that kind of increase in there. And yeah, they're people that are busy. They don't necessarily, they want to work out. They know the importance of it, but they don't necessarily have the time or the desire to go to a gym all the time. Some people combine it. Some people work out sometime at home, sometimes with a personal trainer, but it's people that are time sensitive. And all those features that were safety features, like the Bluetooth on, weight off, the ability to change the weight, they're also really great time-saving features. It makes it a very efficient training session. You're not waiting for equipment. You're not having to change weights. You want to do a push exercise, like say a squat, and then a pull exercise like a deadlift. You can superset them really easy. There's no, I've got to load the bar, unload the bar, or take up multiple pieces of equipment. I can do it. So it's a real time efficient way of training too.
As you have mined your billions of data pieces, because you guys have been around for a while now, have you been able to follow, let's just say women who have gone from, let's say, 45 to 52, or maybe 50 to 57, when we lose our estrogen? And so have you noticed a shift in power or resistance generation just by following your own data? Because there are different camps within the menopause world in that you can do it without estrogen, you must do it with estrogen. I tend to think everything is additive. What have you noticed in your data?
Yeah. So the product was founded by Ali, our CTO and founder, in 2015, but came onto the market at the end of 2018. Turns out to develop this technology takes a while. And so we've got about 5 years worth of data. So we are currently basically doing the exact project that you're talking about, work with our data science team to mine that. What we did initially is we just wanted to look at a 1-year snapshot just to kind of understand, because that's the largest data set that we have. As you're growing, when you first start out, you don't have that many users, and then a pandemic hits and you scramble and get many more and kind of things. And people love the product. So we've grown every single month that the product's been on market, which is awesome. So, but we started with 1 year, and then we have got tentative data, I'd say 2 and 3 years. And so what I love about this data, it's real world. We're not talking RCTs. This is not a randomized controlled trial. It's not 12 weeks in a controlled setting. This is free living individuals that chose our product and what they chose to do with it. So I would say what we have information on there is like a sneak peek, and we'll get more, is certainly our female athletes in their 40s, 50s, and 60s continue to make larger strength gains, relative strength gains, than necessarily their younger counterparts, and actually even some of their male counterparts. So their relative increases in strength does not directly. Now, I don't know if they're in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, or I'm not measuring, their estrogen levels necessarily. Maybe at some point AI might tease that out by some of the other pieces. But right now, what we know is it does not seem to be. If you lift, you are getting stronger. And that seems at least a broad level, and we're talking tens of thousands of individuals included in this, that on average, if you lift, you will continue to get stronger. And one of the facts that I love is not do they just get stronger, but those that say, let's say deadlifting, if they deadlift at least once a week, they get stronger about 75% in the first year, massive increases in strength. They make 130, 40% increases in peak power. So they don't just get stronger, but they can move that weight quicker. And I'm sure your audience is aware, but I have a strong belief that power is actually probably the fountain of youth from an output point of view.
That's why I say that for my people that follow me, we are lifting for longevity and power. It's okay to hypertrophy, lower reps. Higher reps, lower weight. But that is not what I need, because I'm a practicing orthopedic surgeon and people fall and have life-changing fractures. So if I can get them to move weight faster or get out of the way of their own fall. That's really what power is about. Am I explaining that in the way that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so. Like power is, while we're healthy and young and, things, power doesn't seem like getting out of a chair, but that's a forced time exercise, right? If you watch elderly, frail people, mostly if they're relatively, they can get out, but it's this very slow movement. Going up the stairs, very slow movement. Gait speed, very slow movement. And that's the time. They have the force to do it because they're doing it, but they can't do it quickly. So those activities of daily living are very dependent on your ability to move quickly. Now, if you take a step back and then maybe that's, well, I'm not, I'm very active. I'm capable. I can get out of the chair. I can do my sit to stand in the right time. That's our golf swing. That's our pickleball. That's our the things that we enjoy are all related. So it's like strongly related to all cause mortality and things like that. But it's also really related to the quality of life in those sort of middle to later middle-aged life, where we have the ability to produce that force quickly. And we see that. It's easy to measure, strength with hand grip strength. There's tons of data out there and we have like norms, and that's cool. It's good. Lower body strength, I think, is important. So like deadlift power, or deadlift strength, better functionally, right? More of a real world movement.
In my opinion, most important, right?
Most important. Mine too. I think that we can see that, and we see that increase. Muscle mass a little harder to measure in the real world, but we have enough research data on that it's important. But I think what we're seeing is this kind of, there was a paper the other day, powerpenia, I think they called it, is this decreasing power. And that I think is the holy grail for active aging, and something that we see because it's not just physiological, it's neurological too, right? It's not just morphological changes in the muscles, but it's maybe the connections, and they seem to stay a bit better, a bit longer. So let's maximize them while we can.
So you know what? You just said something that I want to explore, because people think that the strength gains, or maybe they don't, maybe they're more educated than me, but the strength gains happening when you put yourself under a bar or under a tonal are not only changes in your muscle, but importantly, changes in the neuromuscular pathways and the recruitment of muscle fiber bundles, which is how it happens. So that's why, going back to the top of our conversation, when I said, oh, tonal shows up at Spartan, and I had to stop for a minute and get my brain engaged to think, how am I going to pull a cross-body weight in an effective way? Because there's coordination, which is also critical for aging. So
prevention, yeah.
To educate us about the role of the brain in this activity, because I think, sometimes weightlifting gets a bad rap. It's just about the cosmetic muscles, and it's not.
Yeah. So, like, in broad sense, yes, a bigger muscle has the capacity for more force or more strength. But there is not a one-to-one relationship. So, like, if you took it to the extreme level, the world's strongest man is not also the world's biggest man or biggest woman, or vice versa. There is a correlation. They are associated. But for the most people, and particularly as we age, we see that we can continue to make muscle mass, changes. And the data is not completely conclusive on this, but generally we can definitely make them in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s gets a bit more questionable. 90s we maybe struggle to make that. I'd say the data is mixed, but that's generally how I see it. Strength changes, we have like centurions making strength changes because it's not reliant on the underlying muscle mass. It's the connections between the brain, it's the firing pathways, the myelination of nerves, it's the activation of those particular synapses. And so we can see that and from the strength changes. And I believe, I'm not sure how much data there is, but the power is very much similar. It's about that speed of ability to move quickly, force times velocity. So you add in things like coordination, you've got this idea of, okay, cognitive function. And what we try to do is build the capacity of the system to be able to do those, respond quickly to, a chopping motion, but hopefully that underlying capacity that we build in those pathways can then transfer and translate to, hey, I stumbled and I have the force, eccentric force development to be able to kind of keep my body up.
Exactly right. I often tell the story of, I keep my red work bag right, I don't even know why, on the edge of my desk, and I will jump up and rush and I will trip, but I've developed this coordination and agility that I don't fall, thankfully, but I got to stop putting my bag there. So why don't you prescribe some exercise for us? I mean, you're an expert physiologist and performance guy. How would you lay out a plan? People want very, grassroots. How do I do this?
I think particularly if you're just starting, literally just start. Anything is better than nothing. And anything is actually the biggest step change that you can make. While my company, like that, if you're doing nothing, you don't have to buy Tonal today. Like you don't necessarily, if you're struggling to get out of a chair, 15 times in 30 seconds, or do a timed up and go, which is where you stand up, walk 10 feet, turn around and come and sit down. And you can't do that in sub kind of 15 seconds. Start there, get better at those. Those will be massive. I have my mum, she's 75 in England, like every day. Okay, I want you to do sit to stand 15 times in the morning, 15 times in the evening. We're going to do that. Let's do 2 sets of that. And like we're building up. My dad's a little more physically robust and so he's doing more resisted training, but start somewhere. We actually have strong data, not to go on too much of a tangent, that actually it's not the biggest thing for strength training changes is consistency engagement over time. You don't make it changes, same as zone 2 or even, VO2 max, not making changes in a day, a week, and relatively in a month, you will start to make some, but they won't be the biggest ones that you can make.
Yeah.
So we need to make it consistent. We need to be something I can commit to. We have mining that like billions of data sets. We find that people that start, no matter where they start, which could be 2 15-minute training sessions a week, if they do a little more the following week, like 2 20-minute sessions, or maybe 3 15-minute sessions or something like that, and they increase in their engagement in the first month, strongly correlated with 1-year engagement. What most people do is come out and do, right, first week, I'm going to get fit. I'm doing this. I'm all in. 60-minute training session. I can squats. I can deadlift. And what do you get? DOMs. Like you didn't enjoy the training session and then you're sore for a week and you never come back.
Yeah.
Start somewhere. Like start small, start something you commit to. I think James Clear in Atomic Habit talked about how he just drove to the gym, walked to the door, turned around and got out for the fun. Yeah, just the muscle memory of going to the gym. Start someone. And once you do that, like what should we focus on? Like basics. I would focus on what we're talking, big compound movements. Learn the technique through Tonal, through a personal trainer. We want it to be safe. We want it kind of there. But big compound movements, those deadlift patterns are really good. Squatting might be start of a body weight squat. Then we could maybe progress into a goblet squat or something like that. We don't have to load up a big, heavy barbell. We can even think like this might not be easy, but like, a belt squat. So we don't do spinal loading if we've got pains or things. But we want to start working on those big patterns, deadlifting and squatting, and then upper body push, upper body pull. So like it could be standing or it could be on a bench, but I actually really like standing pushes and standing pulls just because for a functional perspective, I can't produce as much force, but I'm bracing, right? I'm stability. I'm working on my core. I am working my muscles. I am getting some hypertrophy stimulus and strength stimulus, but I'm also making a lot more sort of real world practical. I don't often in the real world have to, unless I'm bench pressing my kid while lying down. It's not a movement that I have to do too much while I'm in a prone position, but like start with big movement patterns. And if you did those 4, like an upper body push, an upper body pull, a lower body push, and a lower body pull, and you started with like 1 set, with 6 to 8 reps, start there. I think you're great. Add a second set, maybe once you feel comfortable. You should be able to get that done in 15 to 20 minutes a day. You do that a couple of times a week, and I think you are getting not all of the gains. And I do think you want to continue to progressively overload. But if I was going to start, I would start there. And actually, the data says around 60, 90 minutes a week is kind of where the gains start to plateau off from epidemiological research. Around 60 to 90 minutes per week of strength training is likely as much as you need to do. So you don't need to start there. Start with 30. But if you build to that sort of an hour a week of resistance training, you're building on those big movement patterns, I think you're in a great spot.
So that's a relief, actually. And when you say 90 minutes, just I'm clarifying, that's time under tension, right? That is when you're doing your reps. Is that what you mean?
It's not entirely clear. It's epidemiological research, so it's self-reported. I would not actually think that's time on tension. That's 30 minutes of training time. So
Just
let's think we had 1 minute recoveries. Each exercise takes me 1 minute, one thing. So probably more like 15 minutes time under tension and 15 minutes of rest periods. That's not entirely clear from the research.
it's so doable. It's so doable, isn't it?
Totally, especially when you don't need to leave your house.
Yeah. How good is that? Let's talk a little bit about how you work in, a lot of people I take care of, they're either stepping off the couch for the first time or they're masters athletes. They're really investing in their time. What is the balance between total body training and a sport specific? Maybe they're a pickle player, maybe they're a anything, frankly. How do we balance that? You've taken care of a lot of athletes.
Yeah, I've actually evolved my views on this a little since working with a lot more general population. My number one thing is do what you like because you are more likely to do it. I would have told you if I put my elite sport hat on and, Olympic Games, Olympic medalists, we'll build a foundational base of general movement patterns and then we'll build on more sport relevant patterns and then we'll build on performance patterns on top. And I think that is the way if you want to maximize your performance, that kind of pathway is probably the best. However, for a general population, I just want you active. I want you to do it. And you like the relationship between enjoyment and coming back, very strong. So,
Yeah.
hey, I want you to do something you like. Now, am I going to try and weave in some pieces of some things you need while doing so? Yeah, I am. So, myself, I like to do some bicep curls. I'm not the best at my squats. So I will, I'll use like minimum effective dose training. So what's the minimum I can do in my squats to get the changes that I need, though I'm not like overwhelming my session with something I don't enjoy. And it turns out that's really small. One heavy set, a couple of back off sets a week, 3 sets a week. And I'm probably maximizing, like not maximizing, but probably getting the minimum effective dose for I need for strength changes. Probably getting the minimal effective dose around 3 to 5 sets for hypertrophy changes. And I think power would be very similar. So you can do a small amount of work. And so I'm going to do that while I'm going to focus on some biceps and triceps. And I'm working the things that I like to work, but I'm also working on some of the things that I know are important for my goals, which are I'm a 45-year-old and I want to stay healthy for as long as I can.
Well, you know what? And that's actually a relief to, I was thinking the other day, I've had a very busy month. I've spoken at 4 conferences. I threw a conference. I'm finishing a book. And the thing that has suffered is my reps in the gym. So I'm very confident, having been doing this a long time, that once I get back consistently, I will be good. But what is encouraging that you just said is that you can maintain with one great set. And so you don't have to sit here feeling guilty and like my whole effort is to loss if life happens, right?
Yeah, I think it happens to us all. And there's a couple of research papers, one by Dr. Pack came out. It's in powerlifters. And I think they did one heavy set. So they were working up to like a heavy single, so really heavy strength training. And then I think and maybe they lost a little strength if they just did that, but if they had 2 additional back off sets, I think they maintained and actually increased their strength in competitive powerlifters. And then there's also the detraining research that we can pull on in this. And we also see it in some of our data where, hey, I was doing a lot and now I'm not doing as much. How little can I do to maintain? And typically it's around 1/3 to 1/9 of the original training. Typically, younger people, unfortunately, can maintain a little lower volume. So 1/3. If I was doing 9 sets a week, now I need to do 3. 1/9, so 1 set a week. Whereas older people, it's a little higher. So more younger you are, the more protein synthesis, testosterone, other age hormones, the more likely you are to make those change or hang on to those gains. Also, being in calorie balance is important. But you can maintain with very little. And when you do start to lose it, it's not like it falls off a cliff. And even better than that is if you don't manage it, it's a really crazy 6 weeks. Your ability to get back to where you were, we get back way quicker than it took us. If it took us 12 weeks originally to make these changes, it probably takes us about 4 to 6 weeks to get back there, half to a third of the time. So
do you think that has to do with our brain or our muscles?
I think it's both. I think it's, and I'm hypothesizing here, and this is not like, I'm an applied scientist, so I like to read a lot of research, but this is getting a little bit. My understanding is we do see muscle actually like protein degradation. We see muscle breakdown.
Yeah.
So the muscles do change. But what I think we do is we have the brain pattern already in, so we can learn to reactivate it quicker. A lot of the early changes in resistance training are learning the skill of the movement to be able to activate the muscle correctly, and we don't lose that as quickly, is my guess. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. That the muscle memory of getting back to good form propels us to making better changes. Well, the topic I don't want to leave on the table is returning to injury prevention, and how with this kind of device, because we've already talked about the fact that we don't need a spotter with Tonal. But one of the number one things that clinically as a surgeon, people say to me all the time, or even on social media, people write to me, I just don't want to get hurt. I'm afraid to do this because I'm going to get hurt. Or people come into my clinic, they feel something they've never felt in their knee or their hip, and they just want to make sure they're not hurt. So we cannot underestimate the fear people have. And so I know you've already gone over it, but how does something like this prevent injury or help us manage that? Or if your form is bad, will a voice come out of the wall and say, yo, 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 back off? What happens?
It's a text pop up right now. We're working on the voice command, but it will pop up on screen. Hey, we're noticing that there's some instability or something moving. So yes, we do monitor that, and we both monitor that via cables, and we monitor it on a SmartView app. And so you can download those videos, and we'll pop up and say, hey, on rep 4, you see where you did this. So you get it real time, but you also get that delayed feedback. Something we use a lot in actually elite sport to help learning, to do that. So number one, I would say with the biggest thing that is much is getting the appropriate resistance, right? I don't want to lift too heavy, but I don't want to lift too light. So we do an isokinetic or a progressive weight assessment when you start. So isokinetic, same speed, used a lot in rehab, I'm sure, post-operative types of situations, because it's a very safe way to produce force. It only produces force as much as you can, not more than you can. So we do a strength assessment when you start, and we calibrate. We do 4 movements, and then we can calibrate using the magic of AI and some wizardry of some PhDs on my on the Tonal team. Every single movement very accurately off of that. So we do this assessment, and we have a couple of versions of it. One where we gradually increase the weight, and if you maintain the speed, we'll increase it a bit more. If you slow down, we'll decrease it. So we have these 2 types, but we do a strength assessment to start you in the right place. And I think that's number one most important. So you're never going to be, I lifted up the wrong way. And now I remember like when I was 25, I was lifting my dad and trying to show off. And I probably, bench press normally the 60-pound dumbbells, and I picked up the 75 to show him, tweaked my back, 10 years later, some L4, L5 disc surgery. And like that happens, right? If we don't know, it gets you in the right space with the strength assessment. Then once we're going, yes, we'll monitor you with that form feedback or coaching cues, both the app and the cables. And then there's a coach in front of you helping you, guide you through that technique. You can model their technique. You can see them on the screen as their real-time coaching. They're giving the major cues of this is important for this exercise. They'll demonstrate it. And you can also just press pause. I need to wait kind of things. Or, hey, I'm feeling a bit fatigued today. I'm going to use my recovery weights, and we can decrease the weight. So you don't always have to push as much as you want. And so there's this, and then we have this algorithm, some more AI, but
AI
builds in progressive overload. So when you show Tonal that you have probably about more than 2 or 3 reps from failure, so you're hey, this set of 10 was kind of easy for me. We bump it up by 1 pound next time, or 2 pounds next time. We have these 1 pound increments. You never have to go, the next dumbbell, step up is 5, 10 pounds, whatever it may be. I've been, dumbbell lat raising 15-pound dumbbells since I was 20. I can never get to the 20-pounders. I'm stuck on the 50. Tonal, you get these 1 pound increments, which means you can make these changes, but very safely. And then you've got this spotter mode that allows you to catch you if you do struggle too much. So those are some of the metrics.
Do you find that people are more consistently showing up due to their dedication to one of the trainers I'm going to meet this afternoon, or to the community you've built?
I actually think it's a whole combination of theirs. And I think it's really individual. There are super fans of specific trainers that like whatever that Coach Ash Wilkins, who you'll meet this afternoon at SWA, whatever she releases, I am all in. I love her. There's others that are literally on our official Facebook community, the official Tonal community on Facebook, 60 or so thousand people, I think, on there, hosting multiple times a day, supporting each other, like, champion. We have this one lady, Arlene, she's 67 now, 5 million pounds lifted or something like that on Tony posting. Yeah, crazy weight. Like, but been on the program for 4 or 5 years, right? First £1 million took her, I don't know, a couple of years, and then she's got stronger, so she can increases. And then we also have a bunch of behavioral science that we try to bring into it. So we have this element of community. We also have this element of like autonomy, which is important for motivation. So I have control over what I do. I'm not just being told I have to do this, but I'm an active participant in it. And we have this idea of competency, the idea that I am learning the skills to do this well. And that trifecta of community or connectedness, of competency and of autonomy, really powerful intrinsic motivator, which means, like, I don't know the exact stats, so this is not a quote, but something like members that are more than 3 years old that are still active more than 2.5 times a week or something. So 3 years later, there's not a gym in the world that has people 3 years later on average that are still working out, more than 2, closer to 3 times a week. It's crazy how people engaged they are, which is extremely fortunate.
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. And you know what? If your members are like me, I am so, like, I wear a CGM, not because I need to, because if they are addicted to their data like I am, holy cow, I'm afraid to get a Tonal because I might just stand in front of it and raise my 1 million pounds just to compete.
Yeah. Every exercise that you ever do will know, like, what your estimated 1RM was, what your peak power of that training session. If you want to dive in, we have something called training effect goals. So this training session is more likely to give me a more of a hypertrophy stimulus. This training session is more likely to give me a movement quality stimulus. And you can map the data of all of it. And so, you don't have to, but if you want to dive in, and we actually find that people that like a stat data, they're about 20% more consistent than those that aren't. Now, that might be reverse causation, like people that are into the data also are into there, but certainly there's a lot of data to play into if you want to go deep.
Well, I think it's fascinating, and I want you to know that in my Spartan Stadium, I pulled down that cross chop, and I did not have to burpee out. So I was really happy to have been able to figure it out mentally, pull down the weight, and then run on. So I'm so thankful you came today. I can't wait to meet your trainers, and for all of my listeners who have that hurdle that we talked about, the fear of injury, needing camaraderie, I don't know where to start, I'm not going to a gym because of all the gym people. I mean, I love this solution in the house because you know these data better than I do. People want to work out at home. And so, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me on. Love the conversation.
I'm Dr. Vonda Wright. See you next week.